What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel Tech with Marco and welcome back to the AWS series. In the AWS series we are covering different AWS services, how you can use them, and today's video is about AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda is the serverless platform of Amazon Web Services, and in AWS Lambda you are able to host your application code without caring for the server which is actually running the code. So this is actually considered a serverless service. That means you don't have to care, as I said, about the servers, the logins and the updates and whatsoever. So I'm going to show you how you can host a static website for free. So just plain HTML code with the AWS Lambda service. So first of all, you need to be logged into your AWS console in your AWS account. And then at the top search bar, we type in Lambda. So Lambda, run code without thinking about servers. And let's go into our Lambda dashboard here. There's no function created, so we have to create a Lambda function. And we choose the top left option here. We author the function from scratch. We have to enter some basic information here. That one is my first function. And now we have to choose the runtime, because we can't actually just type in HTML or CSS, which is then returned by the AWS Lambda function into our browser. We have to choose a programming language. And what we do in that programming language is that we are returning an object, and that object is containing the HTML code we want to have rendered in our browser. To demonstrate that, we have different options. We could choose .NET, Go, Java, Node.js, or Python. And I go for Python because it's actually quite easy. And yeah, the rest of the options we leave at default. So we don't actually have to change the architecture, and we also don't change the default execution role. What is happening in the background here, the execution role is running our Lambda function in our AWS account. And this role can have different policies. For example, it's able to access another AWS service, for example, S3 to load data from, but we don't want to do that. So we just leave it on basic here with basic Lambda permissions. And we now click the button create function. So first of all, you see we have successfully created our function, my first function. And there is a little demo code in here. So there will be an object returned with the status code 200, and the body contains hello from Lambda. And now you might ask yourself, how do we access this website now? There's actually no way yet. We have to create the way, and that is called triggers here with AWS Lambdas. So we can create a trigger here, and we have different sources. So for example, Alexa and other AWS services. And we have to choose the API gateway. So the API gateway is an entrance in AWS. And in that API gateway, we can create a gateway, which is then routing the request to our Lambda function. And we create a new API gateway. And we have to choose the HTTP API type. And for security, we just put that on open. We could also add some authentication here, so a JWT authorizer, but for the ease of use here, we just leave it open because it's just a static basic information website. And we click the add button. So now what we see here is that we have our trigger is successfully added to the function, my first function. The function is now receiving events from the trigger, so that means the AWS API gateway and the Lambda functions, they are now connected. And we got an API endpoint here. And we can copy that link. And let's just open the link in a new tab. And voila. There is hello from Lambda. What happened in the background now is that our request from our browser here came into the API gateway at the exact path here. And that API gateway knew, okay, because the request came into that exact route, I have to route that request to the Lambda function. And then the Lambda function will be started in the background, and then the object will be returned back to the requester. And now that's why we have hello from Lambda in our browser here. And now let's change the code of our Python function that we have a working website. Basically how that works. So we have the function lambda_handler, and that function is always executed when the Lambda function is being started. And at the end, we have the return statement here. So we return an HTTP status code and the body. And now we create an HTML body here. So let's go ahead and create a body here. So now between the three apostrophes here, we can put our HTML content here. And I prepared a little HTML content. We have an HTML head here, which is just creating some metadata, give that site a title. And we have our HTML body here, and we have a center. And in that we have a heading, we have a tag with marker showing a static website from AWS Lambda. We put in an externally loaded image, and we will create a link to a blog which might be hosted on the static website. And now we don't need to return the hello world from Lambda. We need to return our body. And we have to define our headers that we are returning content from the type text/HTML. And easy as that, we just click the deploy button. And now the code from the Lambda function is updated. And the next time we are requesting our API gateway, we will get back that exact HTML. And now we have our static website served by AWS Lambda, actually for free, because 1 million requests are for free with Lambda. And now we actually want to head over to our linked blog web page, but this one is not existing yet in our Lambda function here. So we get a message not found back. Let's head back over to our function, and we need to create another function which is serving the blog site. So we will create a function, and this one is called blog. I go with Python again, and we will create the function. And we have to add the trigger again, but we are not creating a new API gateway. We are using an existing one, which is then called myFirstFunction API. The deployment stage, I think you have to put it on default here, and the security is open again. So let's add that back. And now let's click on the blog page. And as you see, we still get the message not found because the path is actually not correct. So we have to modify that in our existing Lambda function. So we head back to our myFirstFunction here, and we change the code. So we actually don't want to link to the blog because our API gateway is called default here. So we are linking that to default/blog. We deploy that, and it's successfully deployed. So let's head back to our static web page and check out my blog. And voila, we are getting the hello from Lambda back again from our second function. And easy as that, you have your own static website available for free in the internet. But you have to be careful because only the first 1 million requests are for free. And there are some details about the pricing, so make sure to check out the Lambda pricing to not run bankrupt. But from now on, you could also modify this total setup here. So you can exchange the API gateway URL with your own domain, and there are thousands of possibilities you could do. And that's actually a really cheap or free or cheap way to host a static website. And yeah, that's basically how AWS Lambda works. Let me know in the comments if you have already played with AWS Lambda, or let me know if you want to see different things we could try. And yeah, catch you guys in the next serious video of AWS. Bye. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any exciting videos in the future, maybe about AWS. And yeah, catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.